Hello, School Transportation Nation. Tony Corpin here with STN. We're live at the TSD Conference in Frisco, Texas. We got a special edition of the podcast. It's brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software, Highland Electric Fleets, and Scraper Systems. We're bringing in lots of interesting guests this week. We've got Gregg Prettyman, VP at FirstAlt, also First Students Alternative Student Transportation Business. So, Gregg, happy birthday, buddy. I can't believe you're here celebrating your birthday. What birthday is it for you?
Yeah, thank you. It's FirstAlt's first birthday. We gave birth here in Frisco last year at this conference.
Excellent. Yeah, well, you look great for 1 year old. You're doing good. You're starting to grow up. And
thank you.
I think a lot has changed in a year. And you want to give us a rundown what's going on in the world of alternative student transportation?
Yeah, definitely. You know, last year this time when you and I were speaking, we had a concept, or as they might say in Tangled, we had a dream. And this concept that districts were going to need and want a one-stop solution for their transportation needs. And in that time, we've proven that concept out. We're in 13 states now, working with districts. And one of the most interesting things is we're in smaller rural areas where I really wouldn't expect alternative transportation to be, back in the day. But because we're part of the overall transportation solution, as these districts bring in the bus, they're bringing in the alternative kind of side by side now. And so it's been really exciting to get into some of these emerging markets and to really prove the hypothesis that districts do enjoy and do need kind of a one-stop shop for their transportation needs.
Now, you had sponsored our keynote here a few days ago, and on your presentation deck, you showed a very small group of staff members and now a very large, vast group of staff members. You've grown a lot, and you also showed a variety of products in your transportation portfolio overall. You want to share a little more about kind of what differentiates you and how this company has evolved over time here in this 1 year?
Yeah, I think we learned a lot from First Students' bus safety standards. So that's been one of the biggest things for us on the alternative side is understanding, we all know the bus is the safest form of transportation, and First Student being in the business for over 100 years now, we've been able to take a lot of their lessons learned with their drivers and apply those standards, those safety measures to our alternative transportation fleet as well. And then the other big thing I think is where we've had a lot of success with districts is, students don't necessarily need to stay in alternative transportation. So as we all know, the bus is the safest form of transportation, and our goal is to get as many students on the bus as we can. However, there's times where due to an IEP or due to behavioral problems or other things, it makes sense to put them in an alternative vehicle. Well, because we're working with the district as one vendor, we can move those students back onto the bus when it makes the most sense. We can come back to that district or to our location and say, hey, this student's been doing great on these trips now. And if you want, maybe they're ready to, move back onto the bus. And so I think that's been one of the most kind of innovative things with our solution is there's really no conflict of interest. We're not only making money if we take the students off the bus or only making money if the students are on the bus. We're really just able to come into a district and say, let's put your students where they best belong. And then let's revisit it from time to time and see if they can move back into that bus environment.
Now, can you talk about kind of how that differentiates you? Because I'm almost seeing it like you have a full service portfolio, right? And when you look at it that way, you can make the best determination with your staff, with your team. And I know on the alternative student transportation side, that's a lot more children with disabilities, McKinney-Vento. There are special circumstances with IEPs where there's a call for this within that. But you're also helping work through that process with the student because, it comes back to student success. So you want to talk a little bit more about kind of that process, like the secret sauce a little bit, right? Of how I'm a district and I'm interested in maybe leveraging this technology. What for someone who might not have much familiarity with it, can you share a little more?
Yeah. So really, if you're a district, you can now come to First Student and say, look, I have 1,000 students I need to transport. And then we can just sit down, one point of contact and sit down and walk through these students with them and say, okay, 90% of them are your general population students or they're going to work well on a bus. Now let's look at your McKinney-Vento students, your special needs students. Even with special needs students, a lot of times if there's, 15, 20 special needs students going to the same school, let's get them on a bus. That's the most cost efficient for you. If you have maybe just one or two going to a program outside of your district, let's put them on an alternative vehicle. And so you really can sit down with the district, look at their entire population, and really just come up with the most cost efficient solution for them. And as we know, throughout the year, everything evolves, right? McKinney-Vento population usually starts very small and then ramps up throughout the year. So we're able to assist them on that, continually just making those tweaks. And because they're not having to work with two separate companies, you just have that one point of contact and you have a full kind of holistic view of the entire student population. So we found that's been really beneficial to the districts we work with.
Yeah, that sounds like it's really resonating. Do you have any kind of examples of people that you're working with that you've seen these kind of unique case situations?
Yeah, one I shared a little bit in the presentation the other day, which was kind of a fun one, is we have a district that we work with, and they don't have any buses of their own. They don't contract out for buses. They only provide alternative transportation. There was a Special Olympics event, though, coming up in their area. They needed to transport like 70 or 80 students. And in the past, they just haven't been able to do that. They've just had to tell parents, hey, if you can make it there, great. But we were able to pull on one of our neighboring bus locations, for student bus locations, and bring those buses over, part of our solution, and transport those students to and from the Special Olympics. So things like that. There's other times siblings in the same home where one might need to be on a bus and one is okay on alternative transportation. So again, instead of that family working with two separate companies, hey, your one student, your one daughter is getting picked up by XYZ company and your son's getting picked up by ABC company. It's now, hey, you're getting picked up and serviced by the same company. These drivers have all been vetted to the same standards, same background checks, just two different vehicles. And so those are some of the pretty interesting examples we see as well.
Now, kind of shifting gears, there was a session today talking about alternative student transportation specifically, and things voiced in that session. It kind of comes back to safety, right? And this is where you and I were talking before, where there is a writing committee that's being done by NCST in 2025, where you had mentioned in your keynote presentation that, hey, this new kind of non-traditional writing committee for this new form of transportation is being addressed. Now, there was a lot of concerns, obviously, around training, and it's inconsistent between states, right? And what is alternative student transportation and what are TNCs? How do people determine the difference? What are the standards? Who's held to what standard? So there's confusion, obviously, in the marketplace. And the writing committee is going to tackle this. You want to share a little more about kind of what you heard in that session, as well as kind of where you see the market going trend-wise?
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited for NCST to have launched this committee and to be a part of it. What it gives districts, and what NCST has done in the past, is they've given states a baseline. So when states are kind of looking, or districts, like, what should our standard be for bus safety or for wheelchair loading on a bus? NCST gives those districts or states a guideline that they can use, kind of a baseline to shoot for. So what I think is going to really help is there's a lot of states out there that have little to no regulation on alternative transportation. So where the NCST writing committee is going to really help is going to give these states something at least to look at, a point of reference, if you will. And I see the problems. I think some districts are handcuffed by state regulations. What we found is there's a lot of states that say, hey, you must award to the least expensive responsible bidder. And I think a lot of times the focus becomes on just the least expensive and not so much on the responsible part. And so I think these guidelines will help some of those states that are telling their districts, hey, we don't really care what the proposal is. If it's the cheapest, you have to accept it. And that's frustrating for the districts. And I think that's where you start running into problems is safety really the number one factor, or are we imposing cost as the number one factor in those situations?
Yeah, that's a very interesting situation where you've got these policies in place that really might not fit the current need, and they're archaic policies. So yeah, that's good advice. Really kind of re-examine some of the policies and procedures as related to these new kind of alternative student transportation services. And we heard at the conference that there is definitely increased identification of students with special needs. And I've also heard additionally that because of, again, some of the immigration reforms that have happened in the US, we've seen an enormous increase in ridership on vehicles, and that's driving more demand as well. So those are interesting environmental things that we've seen happen over the last 12 months, and it continues to spike.
Yeah, I think what's interesting to remember now when I was sitting in that session is the districts are driving the demand for this in a good way. There's companies are springing up to help the districts meet that demand. And so I don't think it's a case of alternative companies coming in and trying to drive demand, right? It's more of the districts are reaching out. And so First Student's a perfect example. Our bus customers just continuously reached out to us saying, hey, we need some non-bus solutions because we have one student going here and 4 students going, out of district, et cetera. So a lot of these solutions have come forth to help the districts meet the needs that they're increasingly facing.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for stopping in and having a chat at the conference. And we're really excited to have FirstAlt here. Where do people go to find out more about FirstAlt?
Yeah, so if you're here at the conference, we're at booth 421. And if you go to FirstAlt.com, you can find out everything you need to know about us. If you're a district working with the First Student bus location, you can reach out to them as well, and they can get you in touch with us. I have to say the show's been great. The topics are very relevant to the time. And I think this looks like maybe your highest attended conference you've ever had out here.
Yeah, record attendance this year. We're so excited to host the school transportation industry and really bring forward this really important topic of special needs transportation and all the nuance to it. And there's a lot.
Right. There is. Thanks a lot, Tony.
Pleasure. Thank you. This message is brought to you by Scraper Systems by Right Height, North America's leading name in rooftop snow removal machines. When you're responsible for removing snow and ice from rooftops of your fleet, you know it takes a toll on workers and your operation. Just 6 inches of heavy, wet rooftop snow on a bus can translate to 3,600 pounds. Weight that's dangerous and time-consuming when you're using a team of workers to manually remove it from your fleet with rakes and brushes. Automating rooftop snow removal with Scraper Systems helps employees get out of harm's way during winter rooftop snow clearing and helps speed up the process to save your operation time and money. Remove 24 inches of snow in less than 30 seconds. Choose from different fleet plow models to get the snow removal solution that's best for your fleet. Scraper Systems are in stock and ready to ship for this winter. Contact them at scrapersystems.com today or call them at 888-340-4344. That's 888-340-4344. Hello, School Transportation Nation. We're coming to you live from the TSD Conference in Frisco, Texas. We got a great conference pumping away. I pulled in a special guest, a friend of the podcast, Mr. Clint Breyer, VP of Sales at Safety Vision. Clint, man, good seeing you, buddy.
Yeah, Tony, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So we're in Clint's home state of Texas. A lot of Texas pride here. A lot of love going on in Texas. We see a lot of Texas attendees. I think we have over 130 attendees here at the show just from Texas alone, which great showing, Clint. I appreciate you sending all your Texas peeps over.
Yeah, Texas travels well. They love to represent.
Yeah, so talk to me. So speaking of Texas, Safety Vision is a Texas, Houston-based company, and you guys are celebrating kind of a big anniversary. What's that look like?
Yeah. So we're in Houston, Texas, right off the Beltway in 290. This year was our 30-year anniversary. We actually really kind of celebrated it with you at STN Expo, and it's been an exciting year. The company's taken on a brand new look and feel. It's a lot more tech forward. It's kind of just a launch around thinking differently and being progressive, staying ahead of the curve. And we've added a lot more advanced technology to our suite of offerings this year.
Great. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely seen Safety Vision get more active in the market. You've got a lot of customers. There's definitely a lot of chatter. And I feel like you guys are adapting to the changing markets. Do you kind of really see more of that happening? And really, what do you account that growth to?
Yeah, so it really starts with the team. We've got, 8 or 9 reps that really make it a point to get out, meet with the school districts, take a very consultative approach to what their needs are. It could be, 2, 3, 4 meeting with multiple personnel, from routing and dispatch to transportation directors, executive directors, the IT team. IT has become a huge portion of it over the last few years. The growth really comes from being able to meet all the needs. Audio and video recording internally and externally is expected at this point. Now it's about data management, where that data is going, how to transmit it, and be able to recover it. Have reliable video is always the priority, but being able to access it and use what you're capturing.
Now, what do you see trend-wise in the market in terms of technology? Obviously, we've seen some mandates. We saw the FCC pass some Wi-Fi with the E-rate, and there's more details coming on that. And I know you guys participate in that realm, as well as some other technologies. Where do you see the market going, and how's Safety Vision kind of adapting to that?
I think the biggest thing that jumped out to us this year was the number of buses that we connected to the cloud. We put over 4,000 school buses on the Safety Vision cloud service, which is usually in the past it was hosted on the district's network. And I think there's always been just a little bit of a struggle between the transportation department and the IT department on video management there. Being able to get it hosted from your video provider, get it managed, get certain things updated, be able to add and drop storage at the click of a button has really taken on. We've known about it in our personal lives for a few years, and we've been talking about it in transportation for a few years. It doesn't feel so mythological anymore. It's actually happening. It's not just a fake word. It's becoming part of the solution, and it's really enhanced the data management side of things. Not only that, but onboard Wi-Fi, like you mentioned with the E-rate and FCC, we did a deployment this year of nearly 1,000, one district, about 1,000 buses that went, 7 cameras, internal and external, live look-in capabilities, and onboard Wi-Fi deployment, which was kind of interesting to see all the suite of offerings come together and be deployed into one fleet. And that was Houston ISD. It was a really fun project to be a part of, involved a gigantic scope of work, and we delivered, and we believe they're happy.
Home turf. That's
Yes.
nice. Yeah. So talk to me about the cloud a little more. Let's expand on that. So if I'm a district that's not using cloud and I'm on DVR tech, or maybe I'm doing a wireless dump in my yard on-prem storage, I'm having to clean out my servers at some rate, and oh man, I really needed that data. Like, what are some pitfalls of people that aren't moving to the cloud in terms of security? Maybe there's what are the objections? Like, is it a security thing, or they don't want people maybe having the data hacked, or like what do you find people are apprehensive about moving to cloud too?
Sure. I think one part of it is storage. Once you purchase the amount of storage you're going to have, you're kind of stuck to that. And you've got to really start thinking about what your retention policies are going to be. And that's part of the consultative approach too, which is, let's talk about the retention that's going to be on your DVR. Let's talk about the retention for the video that you're going to push to a server. How long do you want it to be there? How long do you need it to be there? Understanding that you don't necessarily have to purchase a gigantic amount of storage for an entire school year, but understanding that you can take video, say if you've gone with a 30-day retention time, it doesn't mean you can't take it off the cloud and store it locally. Say there was a fatality involved, and this is going to be something that goes to court and could be going to court, in a year, or the case take a very long time. You can pull that from the cloud and own it. I think the other side of it too is being able to have what we call in the industry, right, one throat to choke. They like to be able to, go to the vendor that's tied into all this for all the management of it. It's a little bit more difficult if the vendor provides updates to the equipment on board. There's going to be things that need to be updated on the server and vice versa. And it can be a little bit hard to coordinate that with the IT team and the transportation team, but being able to call your vendor that's providing all of it together makes it a little bit more manageable. If there are firmware updates, software updates, you can contact us and we'll get it all handled. So it's a hands-free, expandable solution. And it's just more of the next level of, we've got all this data coming in, we need help managing it, and that's what we're here to do.
Wonderful. Now, I'm sure some people are patting your back. You're doing a good job. You talked about Houston. Are there any other big projects that you've just completed where you've seen kind of more trends happening in line with what you're talking about?
Yeah, dating back to last year, we did a 1,700 bus retrofit for Clark County that involved internal cameras, total view, 360 view, live connectivity, cloud hosting. And that was kind of, the first big launch of deploying multiple solutions, or that are looked at sometimes as multiple solutions. And it's propelled us into doing a lot more. We are in the middle of the Fort Worth ISD project, starting on that for about 400 buses. We're about to take on the Leander ISD project, a few hundred buses there. So we've really gotten down how to do these large deployments, meet the timelines that are required from the district, and collaborate with them on, making sure every step of the way throughout the project, we're meeting their needs, we're delivering on time, and they're not having any downtime with their buses, and making it a point to wrap up and make sure we delivered what we promised.
Wonderful. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming in and chatting with me today. Hope you have a great conference with us here at the TSD Conference in Frisco. People want to learn more about you. Where are they heading, Clint?
Yeah, www.safetyvision.com. You can Google us. You can go to our sites. You can come by our booth. We're going to have marketing material. We're going to have QR codes that'll lead you to the website. You can find us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram. I don't think we've made it to TikTok yet, but I'm on there. And please feel free to reach out to the company or any of the people that you've met throughout this year at the shows, any of the visits we've made to your district. Contact us directly. We'll be happy to help.
Wonderful.
Want to welcome our next guest on School Transportation Nation podcast, Teresa Fleming, the reigning Transportation Director of the Year, as awarded by School Transportation News in the November issue of the magazine. Honored today at the beginning of our general session. Teresa, it's a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm definitely honored to be here to accept the award and to represent all of the other transportation directors as we work very hard every single day to provide safe transportation for students to and from school. And I hope that my role model as the Transportation Director of the Year will inspire other young leaders to one day be able to accept this award as well.
And so representing the school district of Philadelphia, for all of those out there in the nation who have not read the article yet, like I mentioned, it's up online at stonline.com. You can learn all about Teresa. The newly minted, now I want to make sure I get this correct, the Deputy Chief Operations Officer.
That is correct. Deputy COO.
Oh boy. And so now overseeing transportation, but you've seen your world expand.
Yes.
Talk about, so you're still leading the transportation department, but what else are you doing there for Philadelphia?
So in my role as Deputy Chief Operations Officer, I provide oversight for administrative support services, communication, food services, and transportation. On a daily basis, I still oversee the operations of transportation as well as providing the support needed in those other areas in operations.
So give a snapshot. I know you probably have committed this to memory after the article that you did with Taylor Ekbatani, our senior editor, and then the general session that I moderated this morning where you're talking about operations there in Philly. Give our listeners an overview of what the operations look like.
So our operation is comprised of a few divisions. We have our educational spaces, which is one half of operations, and that consists of facilities, maintenance, environmental, and capital programs. All of those different divisions within operations, or those departments within the operations division, provide support for our educational spaces. And then the other side of operations would be support services, which is the area that I oversee with food services, transportation, communication, and all administrative support.
So how have you been applying your experience and your expertise in leading transportation. You have a background in logistics, with ocean vessels, I believe, and and we can talk about that, how you made the switch into student transportation. But how have you been utilizing all these past experiences in transportation to now expand your orbit?
My past experiences has allowed me to understand processes and how to successfully implement processes, but also to see them through and to execute plans successfully. I also think just having that experience, being able to adapt quickly to changes, working in transportation, no matter what type of transportation, there's always things that may arise, even with in my days of dealing with ocean transportation, you may have rail derailments, you have truck delays, you have a timeline, right? Everything is time sensitive. So those shipments would need to reach the port by a certain time in order to make that vessel and make it for the exports that are going out of the country. The same with getting students to school on time. It's all about the on-time arrival of our precious cargo, which are students in this case. But I think that skill set of being able to quickly adapt, to be able to implement change, provide resolution to problems that may exist, has helped me in this industry as well.
So let's talk about your backstory a little bit. So you were in ocean logistics. You're now in student transportation and all these other aspects that you just mentioned for the School District of Philadelphia. How did that all come about?
Well, it came about, I started with the school district in 2016. As I mentioned earlier today, as a data analyst. And in that role, I did a lot of analysis with data, supply chain logistics before, but having an understanding of data allows you to have a good foundation and understanding what's most important when it comes to the key performance indicators. And using that skill set to then begin working with our vendors and understanding the number of students that we're transporting and the number of special needs students, what is our on-time performance, all of those key things. But in the meantime, because I was collecting data, I had an opportunity to build relationships with our external partners. And with that, I was able to quickly adapt to being a director and overseeing those contractors, working on all of the requests for proposals. And the relationship was already there for me being the data person and reaching out to them to collect information. But I think being in that role was really the most advantageous for me in order to be able to successfully lead the department, because it allowed me to have full exposure to not just the yellow bus operation, but also alternative transportation, which for many districts is a growing portion of their operation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then tomorrow, I'm doing a breakout panel. You're going to be on that, where we're going to be diving into that topic a little bit more. Back to the data and technology. So obviously, understanding the data, when you're the leader, it sure makes it a heck of a lot easier to then be able to impart that on your team and make sure that they're trained up in the right aspects, that you're able to help identify the proper technology that you need.
That is correct. Starting when I was in the data analyst role, I also led an RFP when we first implemented our full GPS solution. So again, when it goes back to that data, I understand the intricate details of the data on a day-to-day basis, but also at a higher level, and being able to make those decisions that can help to position us better to improve our operation.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a little bit, we were having a side conversation earlier, and you were talking about, seeing through initiatives and making sure things get done the way that you've wanted them to get done. And the conversation turned a bit towards mentorship. I want to get your thoughts on both your own personal views, but perhaps also things that you see available to the industry, or the industry needing to do as we look at, you're certainly a very young woman still, but this has traditionally been an aging industry, and we have a lot of older leaders who are transitioning out, and we have a lot of new folks, especially, we just look at this conference. I was talking with Alex Robinson earlier, and I mentioned that about 60% of our attendees are new-time attendees. They've never been here before. So I want to get your thoughts on mentorship, identifying folks that are coming up in the department to try to identify the next round of leaders.
I think I definitely try to identify those individuals in my department that I think have that potential to achieve higher things. So what I had challenged all of my leadership team to do, everyone had to pick at least one conference to attend this year. And the purpose for that was allow them to see outside of Philadelphia School District, there's a whole world of transportation out there. Individuals across the United States, even from urban districts to smaller districts, that's doing the same thing that we're doing. They have the same challenges that we have. And I find that sometimes when you have individuals that come up in the ranks, they adapt to what they were trained to do. And they're not always familiar with other innovative ways of doing things, which is why I felt it was really important for my staff to get out, attend a conference, talk to other individuals in other districts and understand some of the things that they're doing, some of the technology that they're using, as opposed to me bringing that information back. It was important for them to hear that firsthand. And I think that's going to help to groom them so that they can elevate their minds to know, hey, I could be doing a lot more. And I tell all of them, like, I was just promoted. There's going to be a time when I'm not going to be in transportation and someone's going to have to step into my role.
And you certainly brought, so when you talk about your staff being here, they came in droves. I mean, part of it was to celebrate you, well-deserved honor. But how many folks came with you from Philadelphia? I mean, it seems like you brought half the city with you.
Well, if I could, I would have, but I actually brought 4 members with me. We had 3 members that attended one of the other conferences that you guys host earlier this year. So definitely trying to, again, get them exposed, but not just because I was being celebrated here. They were already slated to come to this conference. We transport in-house. The majority of the students we transport receive curb-to-curb transportation. And it was very important for them to have this exposure, to be able to sit in the different classes that are offered, because you guys offer a very extensive content that would be beneficial for them, and that hopefully they will go back and be able to apply what they've learned here.
Well, hopefully they do come away with a lot of takeaways. That's always the goal that we have at STN with TSD or STN Expo or our articles. So again, congratulations to you. A very well-deserved honor. Looking forward to more great things from you, Teresa, as well as from the School District of Philadelphia. And look forward to working with you on an ongoing basis.
I appreciate that. I do want to add one thing. The feedback from my team, they are so excited. They're loving every second of being here and just being able to really see, talk to some of the suppliers about products that they're offering and being able to participate in the safety training. They are really enjoying it. So that's one thing that I would definitely encourage other leaders to do, is to expose their team to conferences such as this so that they can get the exposure and be able to grow and learn more.
And our trade show is not even started yet.
Not even started.
As we're recording this, it starts tomorrow and then continues the next day. So
I don't know what they're going to do over the next 2 days once this trade show kicks off. I think they're going to need luggage to take home a lot of the goodies that they'll get. And I just be prepared, because it could be overwhelming, but they are definitely excited and I'm excited for them. So I appreciate, you guys putting this conference on every single year and always looking for ways to improve and make it better.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Teresa.
Thank you.
Again, it is our honor.
I'm honored. So I appreciate all of you.
Hey, thanks to all our guests today and yesterday and the day before, our episode sponsors, you guys listening out there in School Transportation Nation land. Don't forget, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to pods. Guys, don't forget stnonline.com for all the latest information on the school transportation universe that we live in every day. We've got great conference updates on the website, news, information, all the things you need to do to make your job safer and more operationally efficient in school transportation. Nation, we love you. We'll see you next week.